And let me tell you about the Higher Self Expo July 2021. It's a 24-hour event with 33 guest speakers who are sharing their wisdom and exploring the connection between science and spirituality. Today's guest is a guest speaker at this event. To register your place and find out more, go to www.higherselfexpo.com. Hey everybody, it's Louisa Munson coming to you with another feel-good conversation. Now, I'm really excited about my guest today, as I always am, to be fair, but this is something that I can see that touches the lives of people, whether they're in a corporation or, you know, just wanting more expression themselves. So I want to introduce her to you, but I want to make sure that I get the phraseology right, and you'll understand why as we go through this talk. Because there's a lot to this person. I just want to make sure I do her justice. So in a second, I am going to read from my screen, so you will see my eyes just drop a little bit as I'm reading. But my guest today is somebody who has contacted the evolutionary rebel in herself. You know, she's had to transcend oppressive cultural conditioning from an arranged marriage at the age of 19. She then began to self-actualize and look for a greater degree of potential in herself. She is a vibrational alchemist, an information systems engineer. She's also a change and conflict specialist and also the creator of IONATION. Now, this is where I need to read from my screen. So IONATION is the lens, language, and logic of vibrational intelligence. So we are going to be talking a little bit about what vibrational intelligence is today. She also facilitates individuals and organizations in unleashing their multidimensional potential in service to our collective evolution. So it sounds like someone we want to get to know, right? So it's my absolute pleasure to bring in my guest today. So let me introduce you to her right now. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce my guest today. My guest is Darshana Patel. Darshana, welcome to the show. Welcome to Feel Good Conversations. How are you today?
I'm so wonderful. Thanks for letting me be here today. What a privilege. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm really pleased that you wanted to engage with me because you've got a really interesting story and the work you do is incredible. And I really want the chance to be able to delve down because I think the people that are listening, you know, will be able to take something from it, including I will as well. So it's definitely my pleasure too. First thing I'm really curious about is I've been looking at your website and I can see that you've got a very unusual skill set. You know, not lots of people study language in the ways that you have and have made the connections and sort of brought in spirituality to it and also applied it to business. So it's an unusual skill set and one that I'm really appreciative of. But what I'm really curious about is what has led you on your journey to where you are now, you know, acquiring this wonderful skill set. What can you tell me about?
The journey. So the first thing I always have to do is get in my body to actually remember and feel my journey. Mm-hmm. The notion that everything is vibration was in the fabric of my experience really early on. So my earliest memories were being able to look outside in nature. You know, we had a tiny backyard and just seeing all the bits of energy, like that's how I could inherently perceive things. Mm-hmm. So when you perceive something a certain way, you're assuming everyone else is too.
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize that it was not a thing that everyone could experience the minutia of energy that is the composition of everything. It is that interconnected vibrational essence of this thing that science goes, is it conscious or why are we making the consciousness? And we'll never know because when we're in something, we can't step out of it to analyze it. Hence the issue with reductionist approaches. So the idea of holism was in my understanding of the world, and then growing up Hindu, part of my journey was, you know, I already understood and had a perspective, and there's no absolute truth. It's all relative. That's the relativity of nature, is that it's one position looking at another position and seeing what's the same and different and how the energy wants to flow or not flow together. And that, so that essence of reality was how I perceive the world from very early on. And then I had these impressions of, these Vedic traditional ways of seeing life as a hero's journey. And we're all archetypes restoring the wholeness and completeness of our divine true nature, which is simply following this beautiful I am pulse, this impulse moment to moment, steering us and guiding us. Intuition, intuit ion is to know beyond reason. The reason is the cognition, cognate etymology, how we know the ion, the light. So my journey led me on this quest ion, my light particles on a quest, is if everything is information and vibration, which is the way I was perceiving the world, how come we can't create a beautiful new collective reality together? So my journey, if I fast forward, and then I'm happy to fill in the deeper blanks, the deeper question that emerged was not just how can we change reality if everything's vibration, but what holds it all in place? If it's all vibration, vibration is tense ion, tension. So everything led me back to the idea of triangles. So my course of my journey has been literally reverse engineering the mechanics of this tapestry of space-time, how we weave internal composition, which then we're literally just casting out, we're projecting as an external reality. And then we have shared agreement through conversation that's anchoring it down with the density of emotional entanglement. It's very simple if we imagine that emotions are creating the association. Yeah. So I have a programming background. I'm a software engineer. I'm an information systems engineer and a process optimization geek like Six Sigma. And, I understand society and civilization from the bit and byte level, but now with the consciousness work that I've done, with the spiritual entanglement of seeing everything as this beautiful conscious vibration that is one and the same of us, technology can now be used to help us remember how to be human, because what holds it in place is our emotional entanglement with particular associations, creating the neural topology, which is then our holographic projection. So my path has been giving me the grit and the friction of identity in order to kind of like Neo in the Matrix. I think we're all climbing out of our own boxes of limitations, our own dimensions, and we're going with these multi-dimensional beings. And that's really what my journey has led me to, was like out of an arranged marriage at 19, I understood much later in life, like now at almost 48, going, wow, the power of culture to indoctrinate a young mind that this is reality. And then you have to work in the corporate job. So when I left that to do the energy work, like just climbing out of box after box, I recognize we have this unyielding desire inside of us to self-actualize. And what if society and systems were then built to mirror that? And that's where the culmination of my journey is today, is now having a daughter who's, I'm an empty nester. She's flying in her new directions, and then going, once we see 2 generations do it, anything becomes possible. And it does take the healing, and that's the spiritual side that then allows the science to catch up and evolve our self-understanding, because what we're trying to observe is a projection of what's within. So it literally is a reverse engineering of our quest outside. It actually, the answers are literally mapped right here, because then we could solve our own equations that are limiting a greater, richer degree of the light. If we're like crystals, there's a clarity that begins to emerge from within us when we just stop thinking so much and relax a little. That's been my journey, was kind of learning to just chill and be guided by the intuitive impulse. And that's had me be, I would say, successful enough where inside I'm like, God, I'm fulfilled. And now I'm at a new level of fulfillment. What does that look like? Creating a whole new economy and a whole new vision for the world. I don't want to settle anymore. Why would we hand this world down to the next generations? I know that, you're a change maker and a ripple maker too, right?
Yeah, I guess I am. Yes, I am. Definitely. I like it. And I like to think of myself as an elder in training. I see myself as, I'd like to be like Dumbledore one day with like long grey hair.
I hear you on that. I've been like, the hair thing is a real thing. I'm like, as I'm hitting this next phase, I was like, I care less, but I care more about inside of me. And, it's an essence. I feel you on the Dumbledore.
Well, you get the sense that he's an old soul, but with a really young spark of humor. He's got a light in him. Right. What I heard there, because I'm really keen to sort of feed back as much as I can to make sure that I've got a good understanding, and that I'm not making things up, because that's what we do, isn't it? With language, we make up stuff. What I'm hearing is that you've been on an upward journey, climbing out of boxes, very purposefully, in a direction that is helping you to feel a lot more in integrity and an alignment to who you are. And I really want to just take a step back, because you were breaking the words down, like intuition, intuit, iron, etc. Because I'm fascinated by the name of your business and how clever it is. It's a beautiful play on words. So for those of you that zeroed in already on Darshana's website, you can see it's called Turn Your Iron. And when I look at that, it could be turn your eye on, like your eye on. And then you're the creator of IONATION, which could be iron at iron. I noticed this morning when I was looking at it. So IONATION, very good. I love that. But what I've noticed, from your website is that it is based on the iron. And some of that story came out, I think, right at the start when you were looking and noticing the light patterns and whatnot. But can you just tell me a little bit about what the ion is, or the ION sound at the end of the words, and why you're breaking it down? Like corporation. It's got a shun sound, hasn't it, in English?
Yeah. I would love to. There's a whole story around how the ion concept emerged for me. I worked at a center, and we had several healers, and beautiful center, different rooms. And in the bathroom, there was, on the floor was drawn a beautiful compass.
Oh, right.
And everyone goes to the bathroom, and you sometimes spend a moment in there, and you just it was a great place to center. We all laughed about this bathroom because no one decorates like this. Mm-hmm. It was a place to center. And then I noticed over time, people had started writing words on the wall, beautiful, loving words on the wall. And someone, I was washing my hands, had written compass, which was on the floor, and that made sense. I was like, yeah, follow your compass. Compassion. Compass, compassion. And I have a master's in conflict. And the definition of conflict, the definition of empathy, and the definition of compassion, no agreement. Even the definition of emotion, we have no understanding and agreement across disciplines, right? Because we're disciples in our own way to one lens, or maybe if we're lucky, a few lenses. So over time, someone had then written ion, compassion, after the word compass. So then I was washing my hands, and you learn to follow the synchronicities, and you learn to follow the breadcrumbs of these beautiful pieces of information. So I was already working on this model now for over, at the time, it was probably 5 years, and it's been 8 years now that IONATION was birthed at the end of 2019. And so the idea of compass ion, compassion, following the ion, and I recognized these models that I had been drawing and downloading, which was helping me understand reality, the construct, the foundational constructs of reality were very simple if we literally followed the compassion, the compass ion, which is orienting our empathic resonance when we talk about the heartstrings and the heart interconnection, interconnect ion. What is reality but a system? Civilization is a system. We are a system among systems, and now we're recognizing the interconnection. It's literally energy flow. So the ion became this, it was the recognition, the recognition that every ION word is literally telling us what we're doing with the tension of the fabric of creation itself. It literally is triangles. And so then I started deconstructing our internal and exterior reality. If you imagine a rubber band becomes an infinity symbol, right? And it's the literal creative tension. And we're sitting inside of that creative tension, trying to reconstruct reality, grasping on the outside, when really, as we're realizing now, the realization is it's an inner projection mechanism locked in place with conversive ion conversation. So every ION word is a function, it's a process, which is what a system is, which is what civilization is. So the invitation, it becomes so simple as if we turn our eye on, we literally have a new layer of intelligence that we can activate, because then we play and we go, this is juice. But it's juice because I just put a label on this thing and I'm believing my senses, my sense ions make the registration that this is an object of creation that I want in my reality. But now we actually, as multidimensional beings, are recognizing the recognition that it's the functions of the mind, and the ION words are just a way to go, right now you are communicate ion. Are you communicating in this interaction? Interactions are what create the pulsation of the vibrational waveforms that then, as we observe and put our attention in particular space point time, we're collapsing the probabilities, the waveform collapses, and then we go, juice, and it's really that simple. So what we have now the capacity to do is understand the mind as this beautiful, complex quantum projector. And it's now with the simple languaging of recognizing the function that's at play, instead of being on default mode, these scripts that are running beautifully in the mind to help us survive, when we do take a moment to relax, we do engage that higher function of intuit ion to know beyond reason. So our cognition softens, which is associating us with a version of reality. Emotionally, we're coming up above the scarcity and the fear, and then the imagination engages. So the ION words are a way for us to play in a new level of intelligence. And we know if we have a new perspective, we have new ways of fitting the puzzle pieces, which are layers of abstractions. In programming, we call them objects. We have new ways of playing with those models of how we construct reality from a whole new way. Like Einstein says, if we want to solve today's problems, we need a new level of consciousness to do it. So I'm offering, let's play as if everything is light particles and there's weak and strong forces, which is what cybernetics is. And we control our weak or strong forces. If we became balanced in 0 point, which is another mechanism of this, it is 0 point oscillation. So we're synchronized with divine impulse and grounded in our energetic framework to then resonate in a collective way that still honors our, individuality within a collective.
So can you give me an example, like a real sort of like life example that you've been through, or somebody like a group that you've been working with has gone through in recognizing how they can play with their words and create a new reality for themselves using the Ionation model?
Yeah. So we can use an example. Let's say someone is in a career or a job that they're really unhappy with. And I mean, I know I went through that some years back.
80% of people, do you think, or a lot more? Or
I haven't kept up with the latest, but I would say, unfortunately, it's probably quite high. Probably, I would hope in the 70s, but it might be as high as that. If there's dissatisfaction in any way, that's where Ionation, to me, allows oneself, if you're ready to do the work, to have breakthroughs. And the reason to me this is important is because I know for myself, there was always something that wanted to actualize beyond the degree where I currently was in life. Let's say I was in an arranged marriage at 19. I didn't know any better. So I was suffering, fitting in, doing my duties, living life, and didn't even know I was suffering and dying inside. And it was when friends would reflect it back. And then over time, I didn't even have friends. I didn't even see the cycles of abuse and oppression that happen. Now, that's no different, I recognize, than even corporations. When I hear people, oh, when I retire, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, dude, like you're dying. And I was dying when I was a very successful corporate consultant. I was a master of change and project management. I loved what I did. And it was high tension. And I knew that that was not something, I was 10 years ill and no doctor could figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
Literally army crawling room to room and then putting on the game face to walk into the office. But sitting in the car when I pull in going, my body is telling me this is not the place for me to be. So IONATION developed out of the grit of recognizing that sometimes we have something inside of us that is drastically different or maybe just somewhat different than the conditions. The conditional context is energy. The people we're around, the organizations we're in. I hated the lighting when I was in companies. The fluorescent lighting killed me.
Yeah, it's not good. It's horrible.
So like
and the air as well, the quality of air.
You feel it, right? When you're not in it, when you go in it, if we're aware, like I did it for years, we do it for years. And then once something switches, you're like, this doesn't feel good. Why am I continuing to do this? So it was that grit of recognizing I was choosing to suffer, but I didn't know I was suffering. But then once you know you're suffering, you have choice. And that is, I think, the worst place to be. Sometimes ignorance can be bliss. It's taking a toll, but it's just going to be longer before you know it. But once you wake up, and so IONATION was a way for me, as I was going through my own journey of identity and just figuring out who am I versus who was I told to be. Because we're getting programmed and indoctrinated by every system we're in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And when we are unaware of that simple mechanism that's absorbing information and taking it on as a belief, we're literally getting programmed. So as I began to understand organizational change and the beauty and power of organizations as individual people, that when you allowed their magic sauce to just do the thing they do, and you honor all the quirky human stuff that comes up when someone's really good at what they do, what happens is you then learn to set the conditions. And as a parent, that's, I think, one of the beautiful opportunities is we can look at parenting as, I know, you know, because you've done the things where you've literally shifted the conditional context to nurture the evolution of the next generation. Exactly. And I think that's what IONATION does. It helps us pick apart our internal belief mechanisms. So I'm just going to put this up one more time. There's 4 quadrants. There's the left side is all about the interior experience. It's the subjective experience of reality, where it's our mental constructs, which is creating the illusion. And then the culture, it's the collective culture that has literally steeped us in a set of resonance that we have as belief systems. Then the right side is the behaviors and the actions that we take within a system and an organization. What's unique about what I've constructed is that it integrates conflict, change, communication, and now a new level of consciousness to relate to how we relate to reality. It's the meta of how we construct reality so that we are empowered. It's not here to solve any particular problem. It's the mechanism to open the intuitive, logical constructs to solve any problem. And that does require inner alignment, and then the cohesiveness and that beautiful coherence of flow state that happens. You know, when you have a dream team and they're just like flowing and they're doing their thing and like they're brainstorming, you could solve anything. That's that sauce that I'm talking about, when everyone's in that flow of their thing that they do. And then you get a group of those people together. Any solution is already there, trust me, to solve the world's problems. We just need to nurture the gardens. The nature wants to nurture the conditions for this emergent solutioning to arise within us. So IONATION just opens up that multidimensional problem-solving potential that's already in us. And I just deconstructed it for the way that I understood it.
Yeah.
And there's so many other ways and aspects of it, but this was my best practices with change, conflict, communication, and then this lens of consciousness through vibrational alchemy that I think is quite unique, because, you know, I've taught hundreds to bend spoons, and it's actually unlearning our relationship to reality. I didn't even believe it, but then I see these kids do it, and I'm like, yeah, thanks for reminding me what I'm saying is real is real. Like, we need the children often to reflect back and remind us. And that's really my vision is, it's quite simple. If we just simply recognize every interaction is shaping our collective reality, how can we bring a little more grace, a little more flow, a little more appreciation? And if we want to do some work, a deeper understanding of ourselves in order to have less of an emotional reaction to things. We need to grow up some and do the work. It's been 20 years of detoxifying for me.
If you heard that like low growling in the background, I think that's one of my neighbors downstairs doing some drilling or something.
I heard something like,
yeah, it sounded like, I don't know what it sounded like, but yes, one of our neighbors must be drilling downstairs. She's got the workmen in. So let's hope not. They're not doing something really integral. What I heard there is that your IONATION is an interactive model that people can be taught to use. I'm guessing that once people are taught how to navigate it and how to go through the whole system, that they then can take it away and use it themselves and apply it to any kind of problem, situation, opportunity, conflict in their lives. So I'm seeing a solution that can be used in endless ways, at endless levels and depths and lightness, you know, according to what is needed at the time. So a sort of situational compass, almost, you know, a way of navigating through life and creating a new narrative. Would that be a good?
That's a gorgeous summary. Yeah, I was soaking that in. I really appreciate reflecting it back, because, you know, it's new for me to be sharing it. Because when you create something, and for, you know, anyone, whether you're a musician, an artist, a cook, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're a creator of anything, you know that there's a birthing process that happens. You birth the thing, but it's birthing you at the same time. And you are different at the end of any kind of creation, right?
Yeah. And as you're birthing, you have to be ready to let go of it, don't you? And sometimes the letting go of it happens after you've birthed it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, physically you've birthed it, but the emotional letting go and go, oh, I've done that. It can come a bit later.
Exactly. So it's been a fascinating journey for me to recognize that. So I know I've created something meaningful and powerful because it works for me. It's how I've stepped out of any matrix that I realize I'm in, and that my daughter's in. Like, we know how to foster and nurture those conditions to allow ourselves to emerge to that next level and be okay with that scary feeling of why, as humans, we naturally resist change. That's what made me good in organizations and with working with people. Is goodness, we want to be better, yet there's something inside of us. And so it was picking apart, what is that thing that keeps us from growing and emerging in ways that now offer a lens of collective thrivability, where we understand that every intention and interaction that we're holding is affecting everyone else. So that sensitivity to why we do the things we do, I think is such a new way that we can invite ourselves to frame our moment-to-moment decision-making. Why am I doing the things I'm doing? How do I know what I know? That was one of the biggest questions in my grad school degree when the professor asked, how do you know what you know? I was like, oh, dang. Like it just, something shattered inside of me. And I was like, no, this is not what I thought. And I realized that conflict is actually, it's an opportunity for a transformative outcome, especially when it's an identity entrenched belief that's creating the conflict. And that's what we're seeing in civilization right now, are these very complex identity entrenched, meaning then there's a cognition structure entangled with the emotional attachment. You put those two things together, that's what creates reality. It's nothing but charge and spin in a time and space. And that's what the 4 quadrants in Ionation are. So it's a decomposition of the literal layers of abstraction of information that we're then perceiving and also projecting onto one another.
Yeah.
And I forget the initial question.
That's okay.
Sorry, that's what happens. My mind is like a big mind map.
No, it's fine. I totally understand that. I used to work in a corporate training environment myself, so I've got loads of mind maps in my head about complex things, to do with the process. What really caught me was when you said, when information is abstracted and there's a lot of spin, and I was just thinking, wow, we're living in a time where information is abstracted and spun on a regular basis in the media. So I was thinking, wow, you're spot on.
I never even thought about spin in that way. That totally puts a different, thank you for that lens. Yeah, it totally does.
I've got quite a cynical worldview, I think. It's interesting to sort of like marry, hold the two possibilities of cynicism and also hopeless hippie optimism, spiritual awareness and stuff. But this cynic in me comes out every now and again. And I think I learned it from my parents for sure. They question everything. And so, it pops up.
I think it's healthy, and having been in the organizations that run the media and many of the big sectors, including defense and power and banking and healthcare, product and consumer services, having been in the belly of Wall Street and capital markets, everything is constructed, and it really is agreement on how we want to exchange literally information, which is energy. And having that view, there's a cynical side because you see the manipulation, and that's the companies are marketing machines. And we must not forget, we are nothing but a piece of energy in a slot machine that's rigged towards the house. And if we as humans cannot accept that, and it's so in front of our face, the documentaries are giving it to us, the technologists, as myself, who left technology, now realizing the power is in technology to restore humanity to remember who we really are. It's quite a dichotomy I'm in now. There's absolute manipulation, because the minute we have an impression, an image tied with an emotion, you have been programmed. Image, emotion, a meme, mimetic phenomenon. Mimetic phenomenon is how the brain wires and fires. It's how we learn. Mimetic phenomenon, meme. To start looking at the words, and you will begin to realize the realizations that it's all energy manipulation and transgression, because we're giving permission the minute we're subscribing. The subscription to a culture is allowing the indoctrination of the information in the local.
Yes, I totally get you there. When I look at language, I also, I studied NLP, quite a few years ago, and also hypnosis. So I really look at language from a position of, wow, how can we use it to get the end result that we need? And obviously, when I apply it with the clients I work with, I'm thinking about an agreed outcome that we've come together to do. But I understand that these things can be used and twisted and forced on people, and we won't accept it when it goes against our integrity. However, if we're in a bit of a daze, if we've already been sort of knocked out of our actual consciousness by different processes like TV, fear, all sorts of different things, then those instructions go straight in without our gatekeeper of our consciousness saying, hang on a second, I don't like that. And so when you're saying realize, you're looking at things with your real eyes. And I was looking at language, like for instance, we talk about doing things on weekdays. And so we talk about weekdays and weekend. And so our working days, like most of us work during the weekdays, we are talking about us being in a weekdays. We are in a spell. It's like a collective spell of weakness. And when we talk about the weekend, we are weakened.
Wow.
And
I never looked at those words that way. Wow.
Do we? And every now and again, I think I've heard it all about language. And then all of a sudden I look at something or I hear someone intonating it differently. And I think, why are they doing that? And it's because they're giving us a clue. But what do we do in the morning? Morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we're talking about being in the morning. I mean, like these double meanings for things are written into our language. And so you're looking at it from all these ION words very wisely and seeing how they've been put together and how we can deconstruct language to understand it better. And beyond that, the actual constructs of our day-to-day living have already been manipulated quite substantially.
Ooh, this takes it. I love you sharing this, Louisa. It takes it to another level because what I'm recognizing is the deconstruction of language gives us, can yield us our positional relationship to reality. How we perceive reality is a function of our language. Language gives emergence to an experience we can share. So I love what you're saying is, God, there was so much in there. Hold on. I love that when that happens because it was, you like dropped me right in there. And then I was like,
sorry.
No, I loved it. You were saying the language. Oh, yeah. So the noun, verb, time, space, we can deconstruct with language, the nouns. And what I'm seeing is we could even use technology to do this. I wake up in the morning. I, who is I, all right, synchronized I, wake is a function. What are the functions that happen when we wake? Mm-hmm. Up in the morning. So then morning, if we saw the two trees, the branches of morning, the etymology, it's helping us reconstitute our relationship to reality because language is casting the spell. When you talk about weekdays, we really are casting that spell, and the reinforcement of every word is creating the density, the literal repetition of pattern is what reality is. It's a repetition of patterning. So I love what you've just stated is how blatantly obvious it is when we start seeing the power of language and the manipulation of it. But now the beautiful opportunity that collectively we can start. I've always imagined creating new language that comes back to symbology, because then boom, we can just like come back to the essence of the impressions of energy. And it's about flow. If we just every interaction just had a little more flow and grace, or at least not offer more persistence of a resistance of a pattern that we don't want anymore, just neutralize it. When we neutralize, we actually at the quantum level allow a greater degree of light to flow through by neutralizing and not labeling with language at all. So perceiving, once again, turning the eye on and going, this is energy flow. I'm a character, I'm an archetype. exploring this energy, how do I choose to engage it in this moment, is really what becomes the simple opportunity.
Yeah, I hear you. Definitely. I love that a lot. I'm looking at language from a new perspective. Sorry, I did have a whole list of questions I wanted to ask you, but they're kind of being thrown out the window right now, aren't they?
Sorry.
What? No, it's fine. I'm loving this. I've got a 2-year-old who is learning to talk right now, and when you're talking about the collective word rather than getting too drilled into what something is, like for instance, he recognizes a tree. So everything that he sees that looks like a tree is a tree. Whereas my 5-year-old might say, oh, that's an apple tree. And my 9-year-old might say, well, actually, no, that's not an apple tree. There's an orange tree, a lemon tree, and he will distinguish them even more. And, you know, our language builds, doesn't it? And my 2-year-old is not saying, he's not using tense, so he's not talking about time. Everything is the now for him. And we come out of our now moment, don't we? As we start using language more and more, we put in this notion of time, and then all of a sudden something is forwards, backwards, and we're never in the now again. I almost want to use language like a 2-year-old, because he's really real. He knows exactly what he's saying, and his frustration is us, because we complicate things.
How beautiful is that? What a gift of a 2-year-old, right? Because you're literally seeing the brain develop itself, wire itself based on the conditional information and the internal mechanisms that you're helping shape and keep open enough to know that, yeah, he's got something secret there, because there is no worry about the past or worry about the future or too much entanglement with the past, unless you tell me I need to be entangled with it or worried about the future. And it becomes such an invitation as parents, that as we awaken, we're not perpetuating the concept of linear time. We're still multidimensional beings who can play with the facets of having a narration and a history that we learn from. But then it's clean slate from here going forward. Anything we're still dragging on is literal choice to perpetuate that learning or suffering. And that sometimes could be by beautiful design that we want to carry that forward. But it literally does become choice. So a 2-year-old has it. Like, I don't need to carry that. What? Like, okay, that was moments ago, Mom. Really? Does it matter now?
Just like that. No, Mom. No.
So much to learn.
They are brilliant. They're so clear in their intentions, and they don't even need to know it.
That's the thing. The movement of the emotions is something that I learned in conflict and working in organizations. Is we would always talk about separating the people from the problem, and I'm like, no, there wouldn't be a problem if we didn't have the people. Let's see what's up with the people that are contributing to the problem, and then we'll figure it out. And so as children, we move those emotions without, there can be constructive ways, which we can learn as we mature, but that movement of emotion still has to happen. One of the things that I would have to do in organizations would get them all together or sometimes separate in order to allow them to have that conversation, to release the emotions, to then open up to a new perspective. As children, we let that energy go so quickly, so our mind remains clear and not entangled. And I think it's such a great reminder, moment to moment, if we learn to be emotionally accountable, because that is the energy we are literally emoting emotion. The emotion of the emitting of the ions and the direction is literally the outward, the inward, or the neutral balance polarity spin that I believe we as humans now have to be accountable for. Otherwise, we're energetically shitting on one another all day, you know? So if we want a new reality, we have to detoxify within. And it does take work. And there's a lot of emotional restoration that has to happen. If we don't have peace within, how will we ever have peace without? Because reality, civilization that we construct is simply a reflection of our own undefined toxicity that we're then just recasting in the systems and the organizations outside of us.
Wow, what a complex world we've woven and participated in. Right. I want to get back on track a little bit. I've enjoyed our journey and going around and exploring language. I've really enjoyed that. One thing that I noticed you say at the start, and also I noticed it on your website, was you're saying that IONATION offers a way to clear our perceptual lens by dissolving the limitations of yesterday's thinking. Do you tell me a little bit more about this? I mean, we've touched on like dissolving yesterday's thinking, but what's the possibility for us when we've achieved that?
So there's this idea that we can be self-authoring. Mm-hmm. I believe that humans are actually right now artificially intelligent. I think we've been programmed and we're allowing ourselves to be programmed and limited in our fuller, richer self-expression. And that desire, I call it the burning yearning of the soul. Most people I meet,
that's
burning
great.
Yearning of the soul. And that's what has led me to take the big, bold actions that I've had to take in life to be more of who I was, or to create the things that I wanted to create, that wanted to emerge through me. So I believe like the idea of transcending yesterday's limitations, it's a question that I think most people are on, but maybe not everyone, is how can I be a better version of myself? When I worked with organizations or when I worked with one-on-one clients doing Reiki and energy work, the foundational intention was a desire to have and be doing something different than they were in that moment. There was a desire, a burning yearning within the soul that said, this doesn't feel good where I am, or this is great where I am, and now I know there's something more. And so there was always this flame inside of every single person, no matter what the situations, the conditions, or even their level of satisfaction in life. There was always a degree of something more. And I think that's really the opportunity, is for us to simply allow ourselves to flow in that desire, because to me, that's the evolutionary impulse of the collective divine energy that's saying it's time to evolve, my little babies, like, because I'm evolving. I think the earth is evolving, and we're organisms on Mother Earth's back, and we're her hands and her legs, and we can help her do the things to nurture her emergence into something new. And I mean, I think it's a cool time to be alive, because all we have to do is follow that burning yearning of the soul, that compass ion within that's orienting us towards a greater degree of collective empathy, from which then these new emergent solutions of a greater ease and flow of humanity will emerge. It's all about flow in systems. All we're doing is a better version of ourselves is just a little more flow, which catalyzes, it ripples some new degree of expression. It's all a grand equation. It's an expression. It's not in balance, it's slightly off balance, because that's the divine feminine going, and I'm always going to want a little more, and that's why evolution is a spiral. So we're on this spiral, this hero's journey right now. We're letting go of one version of reality of ourselves. Why would we go back to normal? So to me, the question of the limitations of yesterday's solutions, if we don't feel limited by the way things were, that's cool. We could stay. Most people aren't happy. If it was like 80% aren't happy, then why are we continuing to play a game that's playing us? If you are depleted at the end of the day, you wake up in the morning, So it's a time for us to now take accountability for where we don't feel fully expressed. We're handing these patterns off to the next generation. You think they're going to be any happier? They're checked out, because they're like, I can create a new reality, get out of my way. And I think that's up to us now, is our generation.
I might have grown up in the SimCity generation, or I was just slightly a bit too old for that. But my kids love Minecraft. So right now they are actively creating a world that they want to live in. So I'm hoping we can somehow realize, where is it? unicorns and things like
Oh,
that.
exactly. These kids are brilliant, right? Because they understand the synergy and the flow. As sensitives and intuitives, they know what feels good and what doesn't. And that's really all we have to follow, is what feels good from that centered place, and what doesn't is typically information that's not in coherence with where we are on our individual and then collective group journey. It really becomes that simple. And we can learn everything from nature, children.
Yes. Well, they're definitely my teachers at the moment, for sure. So if IONATION was taught in schools, I'm imagining the possibilities for humanity would be pretty awesome, right?
I think so. And I've had to think about the ways to deploy and disseminate the information. Because it's actually like an unlearning of our relationship with reality. So it is experiential, as you were touching on earlier. It's not, there's two types of learning. There's informative learning, where we're dumping more information on the same constructs, the same associations of the brain. Or there's accommodative learning, which is experiential and transformative, where how we know what we know, the wiring, the motherboard, the neural tapestry of the mind is actually shifting and changing. And that's what IONATION is, because it's a perspective shift. It's not more information. It's actually a very simple, it's almost algorithmic, like one section in here is called foundational syntax. And I think one of the applications that I could foresee now in this last week that became evident is I could actually teach a robot how to relate to reality as constructs of vibration. And then as it is speaking to people, it can help people ask the questions to evolve their own consciousness to relate to life as information. So I think the dissemination could actually be with a body of knowledge, centralized knowledge, that allows people to literally ask questions. And this thing, the machine, would be evolving in its understanding. But then we have the safety parameters, because artificial intelligence is running the show right now. And programming humans to be artificially intelligent. So we're putting money in an old slot machine, and our energy, our sweat energy, into this fabricated machine. And so now I believe machines is a blank slate, and programmed with consciousness that wants humans to evolve could actually be a way to help us remember who we are as constructors of reality, not someone who's been constructed by projections of how we had to be. So it's really now, I think, this cool opportunity to look at, what does education mean? Educate ion is to unravel. The etymology is to unravel. So the magic in the ION words and the root etymology begin to help us understand, how could education be designed? We already have these solutions, are already out there. How can education be designed to nurture the mind, the heart, the creative, divine expression of every seed of beautiful creation, all beings, definitely our children, as the minds of the next generation?
Wow. I was thinking about a couple of things that seemed to be both in my brain at the same time. The first one was the idea that machines could teach us a greater level of consciousness. Because my question is, can we not teach ourselves that? Why would we teach a machine to do it for us? It's kind of almost like, I mean, I would do it for the fun of it, because it sounds like a really cool thing to do. The nerd in me, the person that likes to tinker around with things, would love to do that. But wouldn't it be great if we just already understood the patterns, that we could just teach our children how to do it themselves, so that they can then teach themselves more and more, and then teach the next generation on. So maybe not only do we need to teach it in schools, but we actually need to teach it to mum groups and dad groups, or just any kind of parent group, or I don't know. But yeah, there's just so many layers to this, Darshana, that, I'm just kind of a bit blown away. Now,
can I touch on that one point about it would ideally be humans? That's what we're designed to do. And how's that been working for the last 2, 4, 10,000 years? That becomes the issue where our system does not allow us to have the time and the connection with one another to actually learn from one another. And that's where we can use technology to literally help us learn from one another, to help us remember we are our own technology. I'm so with you on that. We are the technology, creating technology in a very messed up way right now because it's coming from an external grasping. So the actual idea is here to use technology to disseminate the ability to have this beautiful wisdom that we know is actually quite simple.
Yeah.
And it's ever evolving as we each evolve. There is not one solid perspective except that it's all interconnection. And we could say it's all energy. Science and spirituality could agree on those two things. Perfect founded ion. That foundation alone, we can reconstruct a whole new reality because we can break it down to the foundational particle. And we could say, is it illuminated and to what degree? And that is the composition of reality, tensegrity structures. So then I can stand in the face of anyone with any problem and say, you're telling me we can't solve it? It's a space-time issue or an alignment that has not yet happened.
I love that. I imagine if I said that to, my parents or someone that I was having a conflict with, they'd be so shocked that the whole room would go quiet, like they'd drop the mic. What is a space-time? That's brilliant. I love that. I'm going to go back to that. I like that you mentioned that it's science and spirituality because, funnily enough, and this is a good little segue, there's the Higher Self Expo later on this year, taking place on the 17th and 18th of July, 2021. There's 33 guest speakers and you're one of them. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're going to be sharing during the Higher Self Expo?
I'm really excited about that expo and so delighted to have the opportunity. And so thanks to everyone who's signing up for it, because I love the idea of 33 is a beautiful number. And I think we're just at this important time. My topic is about how to change the way we change, how to change the way we change. So going back to that question, if everything's vibration, how do we change reality? And that deeper question is what holds reality in place. So what I propose is how to change the way we change could be with, instead of tinkering about and worrying about the parts, it's the energy, it's the flow of information that's actually constructing reality, which is holding it in place, the persistence of patterns. So in that session, we're just I like to free fall and allow the emergent information to come through because it's basically tapping into a collective resonance. And I'll be spinning the Ionation languaging and tapestry to just help us unleash our multidimensional potential.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And I shall look forward to listening in on the day. Now, if somebody's been listening to this and they're thinking, wow, I really want to work with Darshana, or, oh my goodness, my business needs to get involved and we need to have a team day with you. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, the website, turnyorion.com, and there's an info at turnyorion.com is a great way to reach me. Or Darshana, you'll see my name spelled right there, at turnyorion.com. You can reach me directly that way. And so I do work with individuals doing traditional energy work remotely, but we're also leveraging the Ionation technology to liberate greater degrees of your divine potential. So I work with individuals on 60-minute remote sessions. And then with organizations, we can do daily consultation and speaking on topics like innovation, intuition, imagination, system transformation. I've got 20 years of global transformation projects for the biggest companies of the world. So there's a lens that I'm offering. And then I really see my work within this last week definitely needed in the artificial intelligence industry, because we can use conflict and mediation as a way for these AI systems to actually be of great service to humanity by emulating some of the best mediator and conversational specialists in the world who allow the emotional intelligence to be a part of problem solving and innovation.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Right. If there was one thing that people could take from this that would really help them, just like, like let's say you've just gone to a restaurant and you've eaten something, in that last flavor that you've got, that last sensation of your experience, what one thing would you like people to take from this conversation today?
Thanks again for the opportunity to spend time with you. And thanks for letting me weave on the journey. The one thing I would say, it's so simple, is turn your eye on. If we remember that everything is energy, it's vibration, it's this beautiful divine information, just particles of light, pixels in a matrix. If we started relating to reality, to pixels of beautiful light, I think we could bring a little more grace, a little more flow, a little more understanding and appreciation to every interaction. And that will literally stand up a new reality overnight, because we are generating the persistence of the patterns. We've got to do the emotional ick work to make peace. And like your 2-year-old reminds us, there really is no yesterday unless we're choosing yesterday. So why repeat it if it wasn't so good? But it takes work to literally heal that and restore that. And then I believe as a human civilization, we're beautiful and delightful and always seeking to be a newer, better version of ourselves.
Yeah.
Follow the burning yearning of the soul, the passion. Pass on your ion with that heartfelt.
Wow, I love that. Passion. Yes, I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today. I really look forward to any future connections that we have. I'm sure our paths will cross at some point for sure. But thank you so much for sharing so deeply today.
Thanks for doing everything you're doing and the opportunity to be with you too.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
And to everybody out there, thank you so much.
If you want
to subscribe to your channel, what's your channel called? Is it?
On YouTube. Turn your eye on. Turn your ION. Thanks for that.
No worries. So get over to Darshana's channel and subscribe here if you've really enjoyed this, and stay tuned because there's so many more to come. Anyway, thanks so much once again.
Thank you.
Take care and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, I hope you enjoyed that. I really, really enjoyed that because I guess I've lived in a few countries, in fact 5 to tell you the truth. And in each country I go to, there are different languages, different ways that we express ourselves, and looking at language and consciousness and the links between that. And obviously I'm looking at it from the perspective of my own children, and my own interactions in another country, in another language. I can really see that our consciousness can be changed through the way we apply language, and also by our intention and understanding the levels of our intention and where they're going. So I really appreciate the time that I've had here today with Darshana. It was fantastic. Let us know what you feel. Let us know if there are any language patterns that we didn't pick up on that you think we have our minds blown by. I'd love that. But also let me know if there's somebody else you'd like me to interview. Please do subscribe to my channel if you've enjoyed this, because there's going to be so many more that are coming. I've got a whole heap of people that are a really big schedule at the moment, so I'm super excited. Thank you so much for being here, and feel free to share wherever you want. But anyway, sending you lots and lots of love to you on your journeys. That's time for me to sign off. So lots of love. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this conversation, then why not support today's guest at the Higher Self Expo in July 2021. The Higher Self Expo is a worldwide 24-hour event with 33 guest speakers who are all sharing their wisdom and exploring the connection between science and spirituality. To register your place and find out more, go to www.higherselfexpo.com.